What are we cheersing to, Sandler?
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, which is?
On this Sunday, we'll get ready.
That's right.
Celebrate.
And what else?
We just got back from a lawn party.
Oh, we were celebrating.
Yes,
We really had a celebration for Adult Chicken's first birthday and first anniversary, right? And with that said, one more cheers, because I'm also going to introduce the fact that you are hosting from today forward the weekly special edition, here complete with your host Sandler Chase. And today's episode is a repeat. It is episode number 4, Gorillas in the Colorado Mist, because it is Mother's Day and because we're just getting life back together, coming down from our celebration of Adult Chicken's first birthday, and wanted to put something out there that you can catch up on. And it's all about, I would say, how I came to be the kind of mother I am. And I think that's the nicest thing I can say. Do you remember Grandma Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about her?
She's something else.
She is something else. And at the end of this episode, which again will be a repeat episode to prepare all of you to get back into year number 2. I know most people go in seasons, but we're going in years. My seasonal breaks come when life gets in the way.
Yeah.
When I come unglued, a little unhinged, then I take a break. So I'm not sure what seasons those are, but that's when it'll happen. You'll know when everything's going wonky at the house, because I'll probably take a week or 2 off. But anyway, we're back. Adult Chicken is back. It's going to be better than ever. All new episodes starting next week, but enjoy listening to Gorillas in the Colorado Mist, and the special edition will be put on by Mr. Sandler. So cheers to that. Enjoy. Somebody asked me the other day if I have any tattoos, and I said no, I don't have a single tattoo, not anywhere on my body. And she asked me why, and I said, I don't think there's just anything I love enough that I want permanently inked on my body forever. And she looked at my 2 kids and was like, what about them? What about their names? What about Sandler's logo? His logo is a broken skateboard with his name on it. And I half jokingly said, they're still young. They could really screw things up and make me regret having their portrait or their names on my body. She gave me kind of a sideways glance like, wow, it's rude. And then she said, okay, what about your mom? And I thought, my mom. Now there's a loaded topic right there, my mom. And then I thought back to all the people I know, and so many of them have mom tattooed on their body, or they'll have the heart with the banner that says mom, or they have their mom's name or something symbolic of their mother. And I thought, yeah, thank God I never got that, because my mom, unlike most moms, she was a horrible person. And I started thinking about my mother, and I do often, not in a bad way, not in a sad way, but in a way where I really realized how fortunate I am that she was as bad as she was, because my mom, though I didn't have her, fortunately, tattooed onto my body anywhere, really left a permanent ink mark and imprint in my whole being and the way that I parent. And what I do is do everything completely opposite of what she would have done and what she did. I'm Nikki Lynn Chase. This is Adult Chicken, my podcast about my adventures, my journey, and all of my stories that have to do with navigating life's unexpected as a single mom of 2 special needs kids. My becoming a mom of my first special needs kid, Bootsy, I thought that would be sort of the life-changing experience, the life-changing moment that would make my mom finally proud, and I would get her approval. And that wasn't the case. I tried. But my mom, gosh, she was very open about how much she didn't like me from the get-go. In fact, she told me, she was very honest. She told me things you don't tell your kid ever. And she explained to me at a very early age that she and my dad, they had my brother and they wanted my brother. And he's 2 years older than I am. And then it came time to have a second child, and I was that one. And I guess they didn't have at that time, that you didn't find out the sex of your baby. And I came out and I was a girl. And she told me, and I quote her, she looked at the doctor and she was pissed. And she said, "Can you put it back?" Again, I don't know why you tell your kid this. It's not, I didn't choose. And she said, "You were supposed to be a boy. We were going to name you James. We were going to call you Jimmy." And apparently they had this whole plan for what my life was supposed to be, and it was not. So I derailed their dreams of having two boys. And she was very candid about letting my friends' parents know how much she didn't like me. And I just had this little way about myself where I always just thought if I try harder, if I do more, I will impress my mom. I will make her proud of me. I will get her approval in one way, shape, or form. And that never happened. So my mom eventually sells my childhood home, and she'd lived there for about 35 years. And most of the people I knew growing up and that knew my mom from years and years and years ago were so impressed with her. And oh my gosh, what a free spirit, like a gypsy, she's selling everything and buying an RV. And it wasn't that endearing of a story. My mom literally couldn't function in society, and she shouldn't be driving a car because she was always drunk. And she'd gotten to be such a bad alcoholic that she couldn't be in a normal setting. She needed to be on the road and park in woods and forests and things like that because she shouldn't have been around anybody. And she was a horrible, mean, bitter, nasty drunk. And so she would take her little RV and she would go to different places throughout the country where it was warmer during the winter, and then she would gravitate towards back to Colorado in the summertime. And she would park at a campground and get herself a campground host job near where I was living outside of Vail, Colorado. And it was beautiful. And I liked the idea of her being there. And I was about 30 at this point, and I had just had Bootsy. And I still had this idea in my head that she'd get better. I'd impress her by having a daughter and having a job, and I still wanted her approval, oddly enough, but I still had enough resentment where I wanted to fuck with her because she was an asshole, and she was a drunk asshole. So she had come one summer, Bootsy's about a year old, and she'd parked the RV. She got herself her job, her vest. She wore a little vest for the campground job, hosting the campground. And so there she was. She felt very important, which is great. She found herself a very important position. And she bragged to everybody that she was my mom. It was a very small town, right? So anybody that would come that she knew was local, she'd make sure that she let them know she was a mom, which that was kind of mortifying to me. I didn't need anybody to know my mom was the drunk campground host, but whatever, paybacks. So one summer evening, I brought Bootsy to the campground, and I'm hanging out with my mom, and I knew she'd be lit up like a Christmas tree and have her drink gin. Just disgusting to me. So I knew she'd be about half a bottle into her gin. And we had a gorilla suit, and I thought it'd be really funny to kind of trick her and just tell her a story, just mess with her, I felt kind of like it was my own sweet, innocent revenge. You kind of made my life hell for eternity, so we're going to mess with you a little bit. So harmless, totally harmless messing with. So I went to visit with her and came up with this elaborate story. And there was this big cliff house on the cliffs that sort of bordered the campground and the river that flowed through the valley. And there's this huge cliff house. And I had known stories that the guy had Arabian horses, and it was Vail. People have crazy money that they don't know what to do with. We knew at some point this one guy had exotic animals or whatever. So just kind of put a collage of those stories together and told my mom that the guy in the cliff house had exotic animals. And you're not going to believe this, Mom. He had a gorilla that escaped. And again, my mom's half a jug into her gin, and she kind of peeked up like, this is an exciting story. I said, yeah, his gorilla escaped. They're looking for it, and there's a big reward. Well, my mom had a thing for money. Everything was about money, and always wanted to get her hands on money. Like, she was a big money hungry, greedy human. She heard that word reward, and I mean, she really perked up. So I know that my ex is putting a gorilla suit on, and we had this whole thing orchestrated that he'd go across the river and sit there, and I'd point him out, and oh God, it was best, funniest prank in the world. So shortly after I tell my mom that story, several minutes go by, and I see him walking way across the river, and I say, Mom, look at there. It's a big bear or something. There's a big animal over there. And she stops in her tracks, and she's like, oh my God, Nikki, it's the gorilla. It's the gorilla. And inside, I'm just dying laughing, and I'm holding Bootsy, and I'm like, this is the best show I've ever put on. Like, what a great production. She grabs her cell phone and she calls freaking 911. And I'm like, oh shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. And she goes, hello, this is Amy, the campground host of Wolcott, Colorado, and I am calling because I see the gorilla that escaped from the cliff house. And I'm like, oh shit, oh my God, she sounds like a freaking batshit crazy lunatic. And she doesn't stop there. She says, and I know there's a reward. There is a reward. I see the gorilla that has escaped. Well, right after that, again, we're in Vail, Colorado. So it's not unheard of that people have exotic animals, and it's 911, and they have to respond. Again, we're in a valley. I hear police cars come from both west and east. So they're coming into the campground. And I'm thinking, oh shit. So the gorilla is waving across the river. And I try to signal, like, get going, gorilla. Like, you've got to get out. Like, go, run. We hear the cops, like they're coming from both directions. And they get to the campground, and they come directly to where her RV is parked and where we're sitting. And I'm thinking, oh God, I've got this baby. I'm going to jail. Oh my God. I go into the RV and just kind of hide out. And my mom, again, she's hammered, and she's telling the police as they are writing this down, telling them that she knows it's the gorilla that escaped, as if there are tons of gorillas running around the mountains of Colorado. So she's explaining that she knew it was that particular gorilla that escaped, that there's the big reward for, because it waved at her, and so it was a friendly gorilla. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck. Oh, boy. Meanwhile, all the newspapers, again, it's a very small town, so all the newspaper people have picked up on the police scanner this exciting report that my mom, the campground host of Wolcott, Colorado, has spotted the friendly gorilla that escaped from the cliff house. And I'm dying, going, oh my God, I don't know if there's a penalty for saying for this kind of production. Am I going to get in trouble? Is my kid's dad going to get shot in a gorilla suit? And I don't think they really believed my mom, but then there was another camper that I hadn't seen, and he'd been fishing in the river. And he came over, and validated that it wasn't a bear, that he said he saw a gorilla too. So at this point, the police are trying to figure out if they catch this gorilla, what they're going to do with it. And if they're going to, do they have space? Can they put it in a jail cell? So finally, I'm like, oh God, this has gone way too far. And I went out and they wanted to question me. And I said, look, she's got a terrible drinking problem. And I think it was probably a bear. I don't know what the other guy saw, but I think it was a bear. I got nervous. So I went into the RV. And they went finally along their merry way. I think that I at least convinced them that she was just a drunk, crazy lady. In her defense, she did see a gorilla. It was a friendly one, kind of. After the gorilla experience, I think I finally was really starting to realize that her wet brain was so beyond repair or coming back that I let it go that I'd ever have any sort of relationship with her. Not because she believed in gorillas in Colorado, but more so just because she wasn't going to change. And I didn't figure at that late stage in how she's now in a mobile RV home type scenario that she was just probably going downhill. So I end up getting a message from her, and I think she actually sent in the mail an article about it was a National Geographic actually, and it was all about the Salton Sea. And she had bought, I'm going to quote unquote her, property, which meant a trailer. And I read a little bit of the article, and I did call my brother and I said, did you get the same National Geographic that Mom sent me? Now, she was an educator. She was a bright woman. Are you reading this? Because it sounds like an Aaron Brockovich story. Like, this is a cesspool. I mean, it doesn't sound like anybody on purpose move there. The Salton Sea out in the desert, it's all about a toxic lake, from what I gather. And she's bought property. Like, she's bragging about this. Like, this is odd. So I really knew at that time, like, she was done. And I had to, in my own way, kind of come to terms with who she was and what she was, and the fact that she never liked me. And when I had Sandler, which is right around the time she decided she was going to go from an RV, which at least that kind of made her seem almost cool, like she could have been a free spirit. I could kind of play along with that. But she was buying a trailer in the Salton Sea and going to go live there. So I finally was like, you need to come to terms. And I had Sandler, and she hated Sandler. She absolutely hated him. And there was no sugarcoating it for myself or for anybody else. She was very adamant and very open about how much she hated him. And I realized, okay, she did in fact hate you. And Sandler is an extension of you. She sees you in Sandler. He's the second child. She doesn't think you should have had him. He has the disorder, and she blames him. And she blames him, as she did you, for everything that went wrong in her life. And she sees him as a burden, as I phrased so uneloquently in my first podcast. She called him a retard. And Bootsy was different because she knew Bootsy for a couple of years before we knew something was going on, and Bootsy didn't have the label. But Sandler was different. He came out, and I knew before. I was quiet about that pregnancy. She didn't know I was pregnant with him for quite some time, but there was just so much anger and resentment and disgust, actually, in that I had chosen to have a kid. She blamed him for thinking that was why I stayed with the kid's father. And I just had to come to that realization that it was what it was, and she is who she is, and I can't change that. I needed to find what I got out of her being my mom and the reason she was my mom. And I sort of sat down with myself and said, you know why? Because she came to me when I was 12 and told me, okay, you're legally old enough to babysit, which there was no such thing. You were an okay. I can't believe anybody thought I was responsible enough at age 12 to have me look after their child, but I did, and that was kind of the standard age. And so she said, you can now, I'll cover your rent. And she called it rent. I was 12 years old, and she called it rent. And she was doing me a big service by paying for my rent and the roof over my head. And I think she did talk me into thinking and appreciating that she paid for that. And that was a plus, and that, I was really lucky to have her do that for me. And then she would pay for my food, but anything extra. And she owned a tennis shop. And so she said I could still get clothes at her tennis shop for cost. But mind you, I'm 12 years old, and it wasn't uberly cool if you're forced to wear an Adidas tracksuit to school or a warm-up suit. Like, it was cool if once I got into maybe the Beastie Boys a little bit, but it wasn't really. You didn't want to wear a warm-up suit or a sweatsuit every day to school. So I learned at an early age, at age 12 in particular, to bust my ass if I wanted anything aside from food and clothes. Well, then once I turned 17, or I went off to college, I was young for my age, or younger in my classroom. So I'm maybe 17, 18 years old. And I went to college, and college was the next thing where I learned I wasn't going to get the same help, or, they she didn't sound like she believed in me. It was, your brother's going to school, but he worked hard. He worked hard at tennis, and he did all these things, and he did things right, and you didn't do anything. So good luck. I think you're going to be better off getting a job. And I wanted to prove her wrong, and I busted my ass to get into school. I busted my ass to get through school, and I had to pay for school because I hadn't done things the way my brother had. And so I kind of dove in there and appreciated that too, because I thought, well, I was able to be resourceful. I had a great work ethic because of her. And I got myself through school, and I did really well in school. But I had come back the first summer when I had gone off to school, and I'd come back, and she said, and I thought she'd be happy I was home. Mom, all the other college kids, like, they come home and their parents are elated, and they've missed them so much. And my mom was like, you got to pay rent. But this is like the whole house. Anyway, she made me pay rent for a summer. I never went back. I never went back and stayed another minute in that house. I never went back to that house. But I was angry about that, but it was kind of the best thing that ever happened to me, and it made me very independent. And I was independent at a very young age, and I knew how to take care of myself at a very young age, 12, when I was legally old enough to babysit. So when I did leave Colorado, and there still was this tiny, yucky longing that I wanted her to be proud of me, and she just wasn't. And she was never going to be, and she was never going to accept Sandler, never going to accept the three of us as doing something right and good, and being part of something great. And that was okay. I mean, I didn't have any other choice but to be okay with it. And so she moves to this trailer, now a mobile home, but not one that she can actually drive around the country. And she moves there, and we stopped communicating. We stopped talking. Once in a while, I'd get messages from her, and they were always pretty nasty, or the victim of the world. And, oh, you're going to be mad and sad one day when I die. And she'd create little things that were wrong with her. I'm going to have a heart attack. And I learned after the first couple to just not repeat what she said. I'm dying of this. And, at first it was alarming, and that little, I'm her daughter and this is my mom, would kick in. And, I'd maybe reach out to my brother or reach out to somebody, only to find that it was just her trying to get me to communicate with her. So my mom and I just stopped. The communication stopped. I stopped talking to her. I would know what was going on because my brother stayed in touch with her and communicated with her. But to be honest with you, I didn't want to know, and I didn't care. I'd gotten to the point where I appreciated my life with her, I guess, and what she had taught me. I don't think I would have been as prepared for what what my future held if she hadn't prepared me unintentionally the way she did. It was kind of like boot camp for my life, and I appreciated that. But that was all I could give that relationship, was just a sound appreciation, and head forward and be nothing like her, be absolutely nothing like her as far as a mom to my own children. And in 2018, it was I guess it was about March, maybe late February, my brother called me, and he was living in the Cayman Islands still. And he called, and he had gotten himself in a bit of a compromised situation. So he was unable to travel or leave the island. And he called me and he said, "Hey, mom's in the hospital and she's on life support." And it took them 9 days to find me and get a hold of me, meaning him, my brother. And you've got to do something. He goes, "I can't do anything." We might have had a little laugh, because my mom, when she first decided to become the free spirit she wasn't, when she became the menace to society and took up residency in her RV, she always carried around a manila envelope, and it was a "do not resuscitate, do not." I don't know. I never looked in the envelope. I just know the few times I saw her once she lived in her RV, she made sure I knew she had this manila envelope. And if they found her, you know, half dead, they were not to resuscitate her. And it was odd because she carried it everywhere she went, and she had it in a specific spot in her RV, as if anybody would know to look for it. But I guess the RVs are pretty small, so hopefully. And I can't remember if it said something like, "in the event that you find me," I think was something like that on the front of it. Anyway, the first thing I thought when my brother said they found her unresponsive and put her in a hospital was about that envelope. And I said, "Well, didn't they find the envelope?" It wasn't, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible." It was, "Oh shit, they brought her back to life." Like, why? I knew the one thing about my mother I knew is that she never, and she would oddly talk about it way too much, "I don't want to be kept alive by tubes." That was a phrase that came out of her mouth multiple times. So I got off the phone with him, and I kind of sat with myself and thought, shit, I'm the obvious person here. Like, I'm I'm west of the desert, and she's only about an hour away. I guess this is my thing, my responsibility. I can't remember if I called or how it went, but I had to identify. She hadn't put me down. Apparently, they didn't have any connection to me or my name and my being her daughter. So I called, I think, to give them permission to take her off of life support. And I struggled with it. I didn't have what I thought to be the right emotions. I started mourning the fact that I had never had a mom. I mourned the fact that I was missing. I didn't know how to feel, I guess. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel like. My mom was in a hospital. She'd been in intensive care for 9 days before they even found somebody to tell. And that was my brother, who was living in another country. And now I was in the mix, and it was up to me to do something. And I called my very, very best friend, who knew how my mom was, and she knew my mom since we were in the third grade. And her mom was on the receiving end of conversations with my mother about how much she hated me. And it's not funny, it's just true. I mean, it's a really weird reality when talking about myself that was my mom. And I asked her, I said, what the hell do I do? Like, she's on life support. They found her. She was unresponsive. They brought her back. Now she's on 24-hour. They did say, and they had told my brother, and he and I had discussed it, that she was most likely just completely brain dead. She had been no oxygen to her brain for how long? I mean, it took them forever to find her. I don't honestly know how they found her in her trailer. So my friend said, if you'll always wonder how you'll feel, you should probably go there. Because I don't know if I'd had the discussion with the doctor of the UCI, or the intensive care unit. If I'd had a conversation, and I think I could, it was something I could do, was sign off on something from afar. But I thought, you're an hour away. You've got to go. Get her off of life support. That was the one thing your mother never wanted to be, was kept alive by tubes. So I had to plan for my kids to be taken care of, because I solely was their transportation. I was who they saw every day after school, and I had sort of things lined up and back up. Okay, if I can't get here, they can't know what's going on, because I don't even know how I will help them process that. She was a non-entity in our lives, and I didn't want them getting upset knowing I was going through something. So it was all so strange and such a bizarre thing. So I had somebody on call to pick Sandler up. He was the one I was most worried about, and I thought I'd probably be able to get back in time to get Bootsy. However that worked, I had backup. But again, it's my first time dealing with such a situation. I have no idea what the time frame is here. So I drive to Palm Springs. I go to the hospital, and it's a very weird feeling. I walk in, and they ask me, and I have to show them my identification. And again, I'm searching for feelings. I don't know what they're supposed to be, but I'm wondering, how am I supposed to feel? Here's my mother. I haven't seen her. I haven't spoken to her in years. And she's on life support, and I'm there to essentially unplug my mom. And I said something. The doctor was really glad I was there, and I got some sort of sentimental, sort of a strange, like I really pushed out some sort of sentence, sort of a empathetic sentence, and I just said, we weren't close, but I'm glad I'm here, and she wouldn't want to be kept alive like this. I do know that for a fact. And I signed some paperwork, and they give me a few moments, and I went over to my mom, and I just said, well, it's kind of ironic that I'm here. You're not alone. I'm here. And it was awkward. I mean, it's very awkward. And I said, Mom, you're an asshole, and you've always been an asshole. And you know what? I appreciate your being the asshole that you were and are, because it made me the kind of mom I need to be. And you're not alone, and you're not dying alone. And I sat there. Again, the awkward came back. But I was really glad I said what I said. It just came out. It was how I felt. And it gave me a peace that I realized I did appreciate everything my mother had been, even though it was horrible and awful. Again, I knew better. I didn't know different. So I wasn't suffering by she was abusive, but not in a physical way by any means. And I didn't know that it was what it was. But at that moment, I also realized that the way she was also allowed me to forgive myself for making some of the decisions and finding what I thought was love with like the kid's dad, who the abuse, that was familiar to me because that's how my mom was. And so there were so many profound moments in that terrible eulogy, I guess, if you will, or that goodbye, more so of a goodbye. When I said what I said to her, I realized there was such a peace and a forgiveness of, you know what? You were exactly designed the way you were as a mom to prepare me for this life and to sort of allow me to understand why I would choose what I've chosen and the decisions I have made. I understand why. And it's because what you represented as love was what I grew to know as, somebody being horrible and mean and hating me. That, to me, I thought that was love. And so it made me really understand kind of some of the things and decisions I had made in my life. So I go to the front desk to the doctor and I say, it's really quiet in there. It's a little awkward. And they tried so hard not to laugh. And they're like, well, she flatlined a couple minutes ago. And in my head, I'm thinking, you could have let me know. Like, I've got to get back. I've got to go pick my kids up. It wasn't to make it an insensitive event. It's just I literally needed to get back home and go pick up the kids. So I sign off again. I sign something and I don't know what I'm signing. And before I get home and I'm kind of cruising at a pretty high speed, I needed to get back to the kids and I get a phone call from the coroner, the deputy at the coroner's office. And it was really quick that they called me back. And she said, hey, did your mom have a drug problem? And I said, nope, not that I know of. She used to drink a bucket of gin a day, but I don't know anything about drugs. I think she was even I thought she was afraid of Tylenol. I don't think she did opioids or anything like that. And she said, okay, well, we think it's an overdose. Like she had a large amount of opioids, I think, in her system. And I was shocked because it wasn't gin. Like, what? I don't think you've got the right mother. Like, that's shocking. And so they did end up saying it was a suicide. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't know what I was signing off on. And I'm not really good at reading the fine print. And I certainly didn't when it came time to, say goodbye to my mom. And I became really good friends with the deputy that had called me about how she had passed away. And I didn't realize when that sort of thing happens, you inherit a body. And this sounds so terrible, but I was kind of shocked. I'm like, well, I didn't have a relationship with my mom. I don't have any money. Like, what am I supposed to do with her? There's no one, I can't throw a funeral. She doesn't have any friends. And I said, what do you do with people if they're not claimed? Certainly people go unclaimed. She said, Nikki, we would cremate them and they would have a mass, they'd go into a mass grave. Okay, again, my sarcasm always gets me into trouble, but there was no other way. I'm finding out, like, I not only had to go and unplug my mom all by myself. My brother couldn't get back to the country. My dad wanted nothing to do with the whole scenario. They'd been divorced and he disliked her forever. And here I was thinking, I didn't even have a relationship with her. I wasn't even the kid she liked. And now I had to end her life. Now I have to throw her a funeral? Like, come on, and inherit this body, and it's not cheap. Start calling around, and I said, do the mass grave thing. Like, she hasn't had friends for 30 years. Like, do that. She enjoy it. Like, come on. And so it's a time-sensitive matter. So my mom is at the coroner's office, and again, I became very good friends with the deputy, and I just said, I'm going to need some time on this. And fortunately, the resourcefulness kicked in. Really brag about that, but it did. It kicked in, and I thought, who do I know in the business? I don't know anybody in the business. I've never had to do this sort of thing. And this is my mom. And I remembered we were in Special Olympics, and one of the coaches that taught track and field, or was a coach for Special Olympics track and field, he had a daughter who was in the embalming business. And I thought, well, Nikki, embalming has something to do with what they do with bodies. So I called him. I said, hey, Coach Joe, is there any chance? I'm getting all these. I'm flooded with calls. And I realized people are vultures when it comes to death because it is time sensitive and they're needing you to hurry up and they know you need to make those decisions. And it's a tumultuous, crazy time and you're lost and you have to do something about it. And so it was scary. I'm like, do you know anybody who will at least give me a fair price on, the process, a cremation? And just a fair price, not something that's thousands of dollars. And he said, actually, my daughter, the embalmer, her fiance works at a crematory. And I thought, heck yeah. So anyway, I find somebody that's at least going to be fair and not gouge me and gouge the prices. And we went to Highland, California, which it looked like something out of Deliverance. I kind of was looking around wondering if I was going to see the guy with the banjo. It was a little uncomfortable. I went to my first crematory, hopefully my last, and I had the kids, of course, with me. And we looked around, and Bootsy was just in awe. She didn't quite know what we were there for. She knew it had something to do with Grandma Amy, but we were looking at the urns, and she saw this really pretty marble pink one, and she's like, I think we should get that one. And I knew we were getting the package deal and the cheapest package deal we could get. And I kind of look at the urns on the floor that were brown and plastic, and I thought, pretty certain that's what comes with our package deal. So this sweet guy takes care of it. It's a very uncomfortable process, and he takes care of it, and we end up going back to get Grandma Amy in the plastic brown box. And we took her up to the mountains. I learned a lot. I learned that there's an identifying coin in the box, and you need to be real careful to make sure, things are not present. If you're not actually doing an official service, if you will, those kind of things aren't allowed to just poof into the air. You need to sort of, there are restrictions and rules and regulations. So we weren't going to quite go through with following all the rules and regulations. So we were taking her on, it was spring break. So we took her in the car. We might have let her sit in the front seat with a seat belt. She was in a recycled bag in the box. And we took her to the mountains, and it took me a minute to be able to do it. I was a little afraid of the ashes, I guess, and I couldn't do it. And so Sandler, he no fear, never has any fear with anything. And again, the irony continued, because he was the one she couldn't stand, and he gave her the most beautiful eulogy, and he was able to open the bag of ashes, and he poured them out, and he said, Grandma Amy, you didn't smell very good, but I hope you enjoy being with the tigers and the gorillas. And he didn't even know that story, and I thought, oh my God, this is really one of those profound services. And enjoy the bears and the squirrels. And then he looked at me and he dumped everything out. And Bootsy and I were standing a little ways away, just not to get any backwind or anything. And he said, okay, let's go get some ice cream. And we did just that. And we drove to the ice cream store, and we ended up having just a nice little mountain town visit. And to this day, if and when we see a squirrel, the kids are certain that it's, in particular, there's a fat rabid squirrel at the skate park we go to, and the kids are certain it's Grandma Amy. And as crazy as it sounds, I am eternally grateful that she was as awful and horrible and mean as she was, because she did, and she was an asshole. And I am grateful she was the asshole she was, so I can be the mom that I am to my two kids. So, so Sandler, what'd you think about that episode?
Good.
Did you actually listen to it?
No,
Why not?
because I don't watch your podcast.
That's right. Are you allowed to watch my podcasts?
No, if I'm in it.
If you're in it, and you can watch your segments, but they are explicit.
Grow up.
They're for grown-ups. That's right. But you don't have to be a grown-up to celebrate and get excited for Mother's Day, right?
No.
No. Why do you like Mother's Day?
Because just hang out with your amazing mom and get her flowers.
Are you getting me flowers?
Me,
You are? What are my favorite flowers?
Tuna. No, tune-up.
Oh, tune-ups or tulips.
Tune-ups.
That's I like. I guess I like tune-ups too.
Tune-ups.
Okay. Well, what's important is you take over Special Edition. So I want you to introduce Special Edition however you think you're going to do it weekly. It's all you. I'm going to hand you these.
Okay.
Okay. So put those on.
Okay.
And then you introduce yourself. Catch everybody up on what Adult Chicken Special Edition is.
Are you ready, Mom? This is, this is Special Edition.
That's right. What is this week's about?
Mother's Day. Mother's Day coming up on Sunday, this Sunday.
And what is your plan for this Mother's Day? Or is it a secret?
A secret. So that only they can heal.
Oh, okay. So I won't listen. Go for it. I literally can't hear anything.
Hello.
I can't.
I'm gonna get her flowers and her coffee.
I didn't hear that. Sandler, can I ask you something?
Sure.
Why do you think they celebrate Mother's Day?
Your mom work their butt off to be good mom and good. They work the hardest to be the best mom in town.
You think I work my butt off and work to be the best mom in town?
Yeah.
That's pretty fair. Okay.
My mom is the wildest mom in town. I'm gonna give you 5 things I like about you.
Oh, okay. I'll take it. 5 things.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna count. I'll count on my fingers. Okay.
My mom really good at skateboarding.
Thank you.
She good at making friends.
Oh, thank you. I like that one.
And she good at doing podcasts.
Thank you.
And she good at just be the best, just making through life.
Oh, thanks. Is there one more thing I'm any good at? Come on. I can't just be good at 4 things.
Tennis. No, you did
I don't
pickleball.
play tennis. Pickleball. Okay. I'll take it.
Pickleball, because we used to play pickleball.
I did. But then do you know why I stopped playing pickleball?
Yes.
Why?
No.
You can't say that. You can't say that.
No.
Okay.
Can you?
Do you know
delete
why?
That?
Yeah. Yes. I promise. Do you know why I quit playing pickleball?
Skateboarding.
And do you know why?
Yeah, because you don't want to get hurt.
Right. And you know what's funny about that?
What?
Skateboarding is a really dangerous sport.
Skateboarding?
Yeah. Well, I know it's not for you because you know how to do it, but when you're my age, do you know how old I am?
57.
I am not 57.
Yeah.
You used to always guess I was 21. How did I just go from 21 to 57? Oh my God, I haven't even had my 50th birthday. Oh, well, gosh, I might turn into a really mean mom really fast. I'm not 57. I'm not even 50 yet. I thought you were going to flatter me.
Are you 41?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm 41. Wow. Wow. Okay, Sandler. Well, thank you for today's special edition. I'll probably have to edit that one a smidge bit. You don't have to be sorry. So please tune in next week for a brand new episode number 43. Do you remember what it's about?
Progression.
Progression. And it means you...
Like, keep really good at skateboarding. Like, I feel like I get a better each time when I skate.
That's right. And what does everybody need to do?
Please follow, share, and subscribe.
And you can find me on
YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Instagram, Adult Chicken adultchicken.com, YouTube, adultchicken.com.
On Apple and Spotify podcasts at Adult Chicken, as well as YouTube,
And
Adult Chicken,
Adult Chicken.
and Instagram, adult_chicken, as well as adultchicken.com. And on adultchicken.com, there is the option to donate. Any and every single amount is very much appreciated. If you do donate over $100, you too will receive a hat like Sandler and I have on, a trucker hat with Adult Chicken on it. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, and leave a review if you have something nice to say. And Sandler?
Don't have a good Mother's Day. Have a dope Mother's Day. I love you.
I love you.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thanks for being my kid.
You're welcome. Thank you for being my awesome mom.
Mwah.